Power is rarely handed over freely. Most people imagine that influence comes from asking, applying, waiting for approval, or climbing a ladder that others built. But Machiavelli understood something different. He saw that true power is never given. It is always taken, not in an open battle every time, not always through loud conquest, but often through silent acquisition. This kind of acquisition is subtle. It is quiet. It builds in the shadows before anyone notices. And by the time it is visible, it is already too late to resist. Why do so many people wait for permission before they make their move? Because society trains us to obey. From childhood we are told to wait our turn, to raise our hand, to ask for approval before doing something bold. This conditioning becomes so deep that even as adults we wait. We ask bosses for promotions. We ask groups for recognition. We wait for gatekeepers to open doors. But the truth is that those who wait are often ignored. Permission becomes a trap. It keeps people stuck, while those who move silently, without permission, advance past them. Machiavelli saw that legitimacy is a story, not a requirement. People believe rulers have a right to rule only because they appear strong and established. What gives them this right is not morality, not fairness, but the ability to act, to control, and to command. The prince in Machiavelli's writing is someone who does not wait for the people to agree. He takes control, and the people adapt to the new order. This is the seed of silent acquisition. It is not about being loud or seeking validation. It is about making moves that slowly shift influence until the takeover feels natural. Silent acquisition begins with small steps. The one who seeks power does not announce his intentions. He does not declare, "I am rising." Instead, he works in the background. He builds trust. He offers solutions to small problems. He becomes reliable. He becomes the one people turn to when they need help. At first, it looks harmless, but each of these actions adds a brick to a foundation of influence. The circle of dependency grows, and over time, people begin to rely on him, often without realizing it. The first secret of silent acquisition is patience. It is not a sudden leap, but a steady climb that avoids alarms. By offering value and appearing helpful, a person builds invisible chains. These are not chains of force, but chains of reliance. When others depend on you, you no longer need to demand authority. They have already given it away in practice. Power, then, is not seized by loud demand, but by making others accustomed to leaning on you. Silence also plays a role in this process. Silence is not emptiness. It is a tool. People fear the unknown more than they fear what is declared. When you speak little of your intentions, others are left guessing. They project strength onto you. They imagine that you know more than you reveal. Machiavelli understood that the less you explain yourself, the more others will fill the gaps with their own beliefs. They will believe you are more capable, more strategic, perhaps even more dangerous than you are. This makes them cautious. It also makes them treat you as if you already hold power, even before you formally do. But silence is not enough. Influence requires careful observation. You must identify those who can support your rise and those who can stop it. The powerful do not attack opponents openly, unless necessary. Instead, they divide them. They weaken their alliances. They persuade some, sideline others, and quietly erode the base of their strongest rivals. This creates a landscape where resistance is fragmented. By the time you step forward, there is no unified opposition left to push. Small victories are critical in this path. When you gain even minor authority and succeed with it, people take notice. Each win creates legitimacy. Legitimacy, once built, is difficult to challenge. The more you succeed in smaller matters, the more natural it becomes for others to accept your leadership in greater ones. Silent acquisition is built on this chain reaction. Small wins that lead to bigger wins, all while avoiding direct confrontation until the moment is right. The art of blending in is another key principle. If you appear too ambitious, too aggressive, others will mark you as a threat. The smart strategist avoids this. He looks like part of the system, even while quietly shaping it from within. He is agreeable, supportive, non-threatening, while others think of him as a helper. He is quietly building networks, expanding influence, and strengthening his foundation. This is why silent acquisition is often invisible until it has already succeeded. People do not resist what they do not see forming. Then comes timing. A decisive moment always arrives. You cannot remain in the shadows forever. The one who seeks power must eventually move openly, but he waits until the foundation is firm, until the opposition is weak, and until the outcome is nearly certain. When the strike comes, it feels less like a rebellion and more like a natural transition. Others accept it not because they agree in principle, but because they cannot resist it. They already rely on the new figure. They already see him as capable, and they lack the unity to stop him. This is the essence of silent acquisition. Slow, quiet, steady building of influence, followed by a decisive move at the right time. Machiavelli would say that the prince who masters this art does not ask for power, he simply takes it, and others adapt. And once power is seized, it must be guarded carefully. You must reward loyalty to keep your supporters close, and punish betrayal to keep opponents in fear. At the same time, you must never reveal the full depth of your power, because mystery is part of control. The mistake most people make is assuming that visible action is the only path to advancement. They think power means grand speeches, bold moves, and dramatic displays. But history shows the opposite. Many of the most successful figures rose not with noise, but with quiet maneuvering. Their silence was a shield, and their small actions built momentum until their authority seemed inevitable. Machiavelli admired this approach, because open ambition creates enemies too early. Silent acquisition delays conflict until you already have the upper hand. This is why those who chase recognition too soon often fail. They burn energy on being seen, while neglecting the foundation that truly supports power. The stronger path is to focus on influence that does not require titles at first. Influence grows in relationships, in reputation, in the ability to make things happen behind the scenes. A person who can move decisions without holding an official role already has power, even if others have not named it yet. By the time they realize it, his role is already cemented. The psychology of this process is important. People naturally prefer stability. They resist change when it looks sudden, but they adapt when change happens gradually. Silent acquisition works with this psychology. By moving in small steps, you allow people to grow comfortable with your increasing role. Each shift feels minor, not threatening. But added together, these shifts amount to a transformation. What once seemed impossible later feels natural, even inevitable. That is why subtlety is more effective than suddenness. Consider how dependency shapes power. When others rely on you for knowledge, access, or solutions, you are no longer optional. You become the hidden spine of the system. They may not say it aloud, but their reliance gives you leverage. And leverage is power. Permission no longer matters, because your position is already woven into the structure. Machiavelli understood this well. He wrote that people obey out of necessity more than out of choice. If you make yourself necessary, their obedience will follow. Another principle of silent acquisition is control of information. The one who controls what is known and what is hidden already shapes the decisions of others. By keeping your plans private and revealing only what benefits you, you create an asymmetry. Others operate with partial knowledge, while you see more clearly. This advantage allows you to steer events quietly. It is not about lying outright, but about selective truth. By speaking less and revealing strategically, you prevent others from countering your moves before it is too late. At the same time, appearances matter. While your true strategy is quiet, your visible actions must look harmless, even supportive. You must seem aligned with the goals of those above you, even as you quietly build only that could surpass them. To be threatening too early invites attack. To appear loyal while preparing your own rise ensures protection while you strengthen. Machiavelli often noted that rulers who seemed generous or cooperative could still be ruthless in securing their position. The key was to manage appearances carefully. The gradual buildup also protects against resistance. When you grow too fast, opponents gather to stop you. But when you grow slowly, no single moment looks dangerous. People dismiss your rise as ordinary progress. By the time they notice the bigger picture, your position is too strong to dislodge. This is the quiet art of power, not absence of ambition, but mastery of timing and perception. Of course, silent acquisition requires knowing when to act decisively. You cannot stay invisible forever. There comes a point when hesitation is riskier than action. At that moment, all the quiet preparation must transform into visible authority. This moment is often marked by weakness in the current order. Maybe leadership falters. Maybe rivals lose credibility. Maybe the environment shifts. That is the window for the decisive strike. Waiting too long means missing the chance. Moving too soon means facing resistance. Timing is the thin line between success and failure. Once power is seized, consolidation is essential. Machiavelli stressed that a new ruler must secure his position quickly, because instability invites rebellion. In silent acquisition, this means you must transform your hidden networks into structures of control. Reward those who supported you quietly. Place loyal figures in positions of responsibility. Remove or neutralize those who could challenge you. And continue to hide the full extent of your strength. Because mystery is part of authority. People respect what they cannot fully measure. The danger, however, is arrogance. When someone rises quietly, it is tempting to believe they are invincible. But silent acquisition works only when it stays disciplined. Too much noise, too much pride, and the illusion collapses. Enemies unite against you. Followers doubt your subtlety. The art is to remain strategic, even after success. Never reveal everything. Never expose every method. Let others think they understand you. But keep your deepest tools hidden. That way, you maintain an edge even in power. Machiavelli would argue that power is not about fairness. It is about reality, and reality is shaped by those who act while others hesitate. Permission is a story we tell to justify authority. Silent acquisition ignores this story. It does not ask. It does not beg. It does not wait. It builds influence quietly, takes advantage of timing, and then claims authority when resistance is weakest. That is why it works. That is why it has worked for centuries, and why it continues to work today. The psychology behind waiting for permission is one of the biggest barriers to power. Most people live inside invisible boundaries. They assume rules are fixed, that systems cannot be bent, that authority must approve every step. This belief keeps them passive. Silent acquisition works because it breaks this belief. Instead of asking, it acts. Instead of waiting, it builds. And because most people remain trapped in hesitation, the one who acts without permission moves ahead of the crowd. It is not that he is stronger from the start, but that he refuses to be paralyzed by the same illusions that hold others back. One of Machiavelli's most important lessons is that people obey appearances. They do not see the hidden struggles beneath the surface. They see confidence, stability, and control, and they believe in it. If you look like a leader long enough, people start treating you like one. This is why silent acquisition places such importance on perception. You do not need to declare power to have it. You only need to behave in ways that suggest you already hold influence, and people's reactions will confirm it. Power in this sense, is as much psychological as it is structural. A simple example is in decision-making. Most groups, whether at work, in politics, or in social life, hesitate when choices are unclear. The one who steps forward to provide direction, even without official oppository, immediately gains weight. If others follow the suggestion, influence has been created. Repeat this enough times, and the group adjusts to looking at you for guidance. This influence exists long before a title or position is granted, and when the moment comes to formalize leadership, it feels natural because people have already been conditioned to accept it. Machiavelli observed that fortune favors the bold, but only the bold who are prepared. Silent acquisition is bold in its refusal to ask permission, but it is careful in building the conditions for success before making the decisive move. This balance of boldness and patience is critical. Too much boldness without preparation leads to failure. Too much patience without action leads to stagnation. The art is to remain silent long enough to build strength, but not so long that the chance passes. Dependency remains the cornerstone. Consider the way rulers, both ancient and modern, secure their positions. They do not simply give orders, they make themselves necessary. A king secures loyalty by granting land or protection. A modern leader secures loyalty by controlling access to opportunities or resources. In both cases, followers obey not out of admiration, but out of need. Silent acquisition taps into this same principle. You make yourself essential to others, and their reliance becomes your leverage. Once they cannot function without you, you no longer need their permission. They are already under your influence. Controlling uncertainty is another layer. People fear unpredictability, but they also respect those who seem to master it. By staying vague about your plans, you create a sense of mystery. Rivals hesitate because they cannot predict your next step. Supporters assume you have a grand design. Both responses work in your favor. This is why speaking less, revealing less, and moving with deliberate ambiguity is powerful. It shifts the balance of perception. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. Of course, ambiguity must be paired with results. If silence hides only emptiness, it collapses. The strength of silent acquisition is that beneath the quiet surface, real progress is being made. Networks are forming. Competence is demonstrated. Small wins accumulate. This ensures that when silence finally gives way to visible action, it is backed by undeniable evidence. The takeover feels less like a surprise and more like a recognition of what already existed. This gradual path also avoids the trap of open resistance. When someone declares ambition too loudly, rivals organize early. But when ambition is masked as service, cooperation, or simple competence, no alarms are raised. Rivals ignore you until it is too late. By then, you have already built the base of influence that makes their opposition ineffective. This is why silent acquisition is so effective. It avoids conflict until the balance of power is already tilted. History shows this pattern repeatedly. Leaders who announced themselves too early were destroyed. Leaders who rose quietly, building alliances and shaping events from behind the scenes, succeeded. They seized control without asking, often without resistance, because by the time they revealed their intentions, their power was already real. Machiavelli admired this kind of cunning. He understood that the ability to wait, to disguise, and to strike at the right moment was worth more than open courage without calculation. This method also highlights an uncomfortable truth. Permission is rarely real. What we call permission is usually submission to a structure of control. Waiting for it means waiting forever, because those in power have no incentive to grant it. Silent acquisition sidesteps this. Instead of knocking at a locked door, it builds another entrance quietly and walks through when the time is right. Those who understand this principle never wait for opportunities. They create them. Silent acquisition, while powerful, is not without risks. The greatest danger lies in exposure before the foundation is complete. If rivals sense your rise too early, they may unite to stop you. This is why restraint is essential. You must learn to hide strength until it is ready. Machiavelli noted that appearances matter more than intentions. As long as you appear harmless, others will leave you alone. The moment you appear ambitious, they grow suspicious. And suspicion is the seed of resistance. To acquire power without permission, you must master disguise, not deception in every word, but the discipline to never reveal the full scope of your plans. Another risk is overreaching. Silent acquisition depends on patience. If you attempt to seize too much too quickly, you trigger the alarms you have worked so hard to avoid. Small steps create stability. Leaps create chaos. A wise strategist knows how to measure progress. Each small gain should strengthen your position before the next step is taken. This slow rhythm prevents collapse and ensures that momentum builds steadily, rather than burning out. Even after success, the work is not over. Acquiring power silently is only half the battle. The other half is keeping it. Machiavelli warned that a new ruler faces the greatest danger immediately after seizing power. Enemies who tolerated your rise may now strike. Supporters may expect rewards greater than you can give. The system you have entered may resist the changes you bring. This is why consolidation is necessary. Once you rise, you must quickly transform invisible influence into visible authority. The networks you built in silence must now be formalized. Those who stood with you must be elevated. Those who doubted must be neutralized. Without consolidation, silent acquisition unravels. Another safeguard is selective generosity. When you reward loyalty, you create a circle of protectors. These people have a stake in your survival because their position depends on yours. This principle is as old as kingdoms. Machiavelli wrote that wise rulers reward supporters with offices, lands, or privileges. In modern terms, it may be influence, access, or opportunity. The point is the same. Loyalty must be anchored in benefit. Gratitude alone is fragile. Self-interest endures. Punishment also plays a role, though it must be used carefully. Silent acquisition avoids unnecessary conflict. But once power is seized, betrayal cannot go unchallenged. To forgive openly invites further betrayal. Punish decisively sends a message that disloyalty is dangerous. Machiavelli argued that cruelty, when necessary, should be swift and final. Drawn-out punishment breeds resentment. Quick and firm punishment breeds caution. Silent acquisition, then, requires balance. Invisible patience on the way up. Decisive firmness once the peak is reached. There is also the matter of visibility. Ironically, once you hold power, you must shift your strategy. Silence built your rise, but visibility sustains your rule. People need to see authority to believe in it. If you remain hidden too long, they may question your legitimacy. This does not mean revealing every detail, but rather displaying enough presence to anchor belief. Appear strong. Appear confident. Appear inevitable. Appearances are not decoration. They are the framework that holds authority in place. The long-term strategy of silent acquisition is adaptability. No plan survives unchanged. Environments shift. Alliances crumble. New rivals appear. If you cling too tightly to the same tactics, you become predictable. Predictability makes you vulnerable. Machiavelli admired flexibility above consistency. He argued that fortune favors those who can bend with the moment, not those who remain rigid. To seize power without permission, you must evolve with circumstances, using silence when it protects you, but speaking firmly when authority demands it. It is important, too, to reflect on the ethical dimension. Silent acquisition lives in a gray zone. It relies on manipulation, on ambiguity, on strategy rather than transparency. Some would call it dishonest, But Machiavelli never claimed that power was built on morality. He claimed it was built on necessity. To survive, to rise, to lead, one must sometimes step outside the comfort of ethics and into the realm of results. This is why his work still divides readers today. But whether one approves or not, the reality is clear. Power often belongs not to the most moral, but to the most effective. Yet even within this realism, there is a lesson for the individual. Silent acquisition is not only about ruling nations or leading armies. It applies to everyday life, workplaces, communities, even personal relationships. Whenever uns is at play, the same dynamics apply. Those who wait for permission stay behind. Those who quietly build influence move ahead. The principle is universal. By mastering patience, silence, timing, and perception, anyone can shift their position in any hierarchy. It may not make you a prince, but it will make you someone whose presence cannot be ignored. Silent acquisition is often thought of as a tool for rulers, generals, or politicians, but in truth it plays out in every environment where human beings compete for influence. The workplace, for example, is a modern battlefield of quiet ambition. Promotions rarely go to the loudest voices. More often they go to the ones who have already made themselves indispensable. The person who quietly solves problems, who builds networks across departments, who becomes the bridge others rely on. That person is practicing silent acquisition. By the time management notices, it feels natural to elevate them. The decision is less about recognition and more about necessity, because their influence has already become part of the structure. In social settings, the same principle holds. Some people gain attention by shouting, boasting, or demanding recognition. But attention is not the same as influence. The ones who shape the direction of a group are usually wittier. They plant ideas, they guide conversations, they introduce connections. Over time, the group adapts to their lead without even realizing it. When a decision must be made, others instinctively look to them. This influence was not requested. It was built silently, through steady action, trust, and presence. Politics, of course, remains the clearest stage for Machiavelli's insights. Throughout history, many rulers who appeared suddenly had in fact been building power quietly for years. They positioned allies, gathered resources, studied rivals, and waited for the moment when the system was weakest. Their rise seemed sudden only to those who were not paying attention. To those who understood the principle, it was the natural outcome of silent acquisition. The same patterns repeat today, even if the language has changed. Campaigns, parties, and governments are shaped not only by visible debates, but by unseen maneuvering in the background. At the heart of all these examples is a simple truth. Permission is a myth. The systems we live in are designed to protect those already in control. If you wait for permission to rise, you will wait forever. Those in power rarely open doors for rivals. They protect their position by keeping doors closed. Silent acquisition is the method of creating your own path. It sidesteps the locked doors. It builds its own entrance, slowly and quietly, until walking through feels inevitable. But how does one practice this without falling into recklessness? The answer lies in discipline. Silent acquisition is not about aggression. It is about calculation. Each move must serve a purpose. Each action must strengthen the fanet. Each silence must protect your position. It is not a game of luck. It is a game of patience. And those who master patience often defeat those who rush. Machiavelli himself warned against relying on fortune alone. Fortune changes, but preparation creates stability. Consider the psychological dimension again. Human beings prefer order. They prefer the familiar. Sudden change feels threatening, while gradual change feels acceptable. This is why silent acquisition works. It changes the environment piece by piece, so that by the time people notice, the new order already feels natural. It avoids triggering panic. It avoids provoking united resistance. It takes advantage of human psychology to make its rise smooth rather than violent. This is one of the greatest lessons Machiavelli offers. Control perception, and reality follows. Another critical point is adaptability. Environments shift constantly. What works in one moment may fail in another. The practitioner of silent acquisition cannot cling rigidly to a single tactic. He must read the situation, sense when to move, and sense when to wait. Rigidity leads to exposure. Flexibility leads to survival. Machiavelli compared fortune to a river, sometimes calm, sometimes flooding. To survive, one must build channels, dams, and protections, but also be ready to adjust when the waters change. Silent acquisition is not a static formula. It is a living strategy. The long-term survival of power also depends on balance. Too much fear breeds rebellion. Too much generosity breeds weakness. Too much visibility breeds scrutiny. Too much silence breeds doubt. The art lies in finding the middle ground. Reward enough to keep loyalty. Punish enough to keep order. Reveal enough to appear strong. Hide enough to remain mysterious. Each balance point is delicate, but those who master it secure authority that endures. And yet, the final lesson is perhaps the most unsettling. Power once acquired is never truly safe. It must be defended every day. The same silence and subtlety that built your rise must continue in new forms. Complacency is the greatest threat. Rivals watch. Environments shift. Followers grow restless. To remain in control, you must remain alert. You must adapt, shift, and reinforce your position. Silent acquisition does not end at the moment of victory. It is a constant process of protection and renewal. When we step back, we see why Machiavelli's ideas remain so relevant. He stripped away illusions. He showed that power is not about fairness, not about waiting politely, but about acting with clarity and courage in a world that rewards effectiveness. Silent acquisition is one of his most powerful lessons, that the strongest influence is often built quietly, patiently, and without permission. It is not granted. It is taken. It is not asked for. It is established in practice until it becomes reality. So what is the takeaway for anyone listening now? Stop waiting for approval. Stop believing that someone else will hand you influence. Influence is built by action, by patience, by discipline. Build your foundation. Become immersants. Shape perceptions. Time your moves. And when the moment comes, act without hesitation. That is how power is seized. That is how authority is acquired. That is how the silent become unstoppable. In the end, permission is an illusion. The real world does not reward those who wait. It rewards those who build quietly, who rise silently, and who strike decisively when the time is right. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, and it remains true today. The world belongs not to those who ask, but to those who take. And the most effective way to take is not with noise, but with silence. For silence, used with patience and strategy, is the loudest form of power.